And welcome back, and Ryan's going to be a little late, but I'm going to actually dive into the Oklahoma City, and I've discussed this before. I was the sole exit examining physician for the Special Op Forensic Chemistry team, munitions team for the Oklahoma City Mirror Building at CCOM in 1995, and for that reason I got fired later and death threats. My boss was Major George Swinder. The facility is the Colorado Center for Occupational Medicine at St. Francis Hospital, and we had a contract for NORAD, U.S. Space Command, Strategic Defense, Star Wars, and many others. What I did at that time, and I want to read this report off because it's from the Corbett report, and I'm going to add to it. But on the morning of April 19th, 1995, a decorated Gulf War combat vet blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City using a truck bomb that he didn't build in a Ryder truck that he didn't rent with the help of a passenger who didn't exist. I like this. It's pretty funny. Having just gotten away with the largest act of terrorism on U.S. soil to date, the Fort Bragg-trained Special Forces sheep-dip dropout blended in with the crowd by making his getaway in a car without a license plate and was immediately pulled over. The ATF was the supposed target of the attack, but luckily all of their agents were out of the office that morning. Later that day, the president boldly declared, "We will find the people who did this, and when we do, justice will be swift, certain, and severe, except for John Doe number 2, who, by the way, was in Iraqi Special Forces." And by the way, we're working with the East German Stasi military munitions experts at the time that were actually doing tests at Elohim City for 6 months before the so-called dry run simulated false flag act of Oklahoma City, which is a warm-up for the World Trade Center bombing, which was basically a demolition of the World Trade Center with nuclear devices. And any idiot who wants to argue with me over that and the 40-plus anomalies, bring it on, because I'm sick and tired of anybody who thinks they have any other, quote, theory that explains all the anomalies, the U.S. geological data, and the facts that this is not a directed energy weapon like Judy Wood talks about, or other people who have no idea about quantum physics or directed energy weapons, and try to quote things that are basically theoretical possibilities that they have no explanation or understanding of. Okay? Sick and tired of it. Sick and tired. In McVeigh's unprecedented 3.5 weeks trial, the prosecution didn't show the CCTV footage of him and John Doe number 2 parking the Ryder truck, didn't explain why 24 separate witnesses mass hallucinated the existence of John Doe number 2, didn't explain why the government was testing truck bombs and the Army was storing Ryder trucks at Camp Gruber right before the bombing, and didn't talk to the FBI informants who blew up the whistle on the plot but did not collaborate with the CIA, and they did not convict McVeigh at the lone wolf bomber and Terry Nichols as a bombing constructing accomplice. Still, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists, including 300 bombing victims, insist on talking about facts and evidence and refuse to simply believe what they've been told a million times by people in tailored suits with well-coiffed hair. They quote the U.S. Air Force Brigadier General and FBI crime lab whistleblower and inventor of the neutron bomb, who pointed out the physical impossibility that the Ryder truck did not damage the building, but didn't matter because if there were other bombs in the building that day, they would have heard about them. Well, I took care of the munitions team, and they removed 2 U.S. Army Corps engineer micronukes, thermate, RDX and high explosive cord, and a C4 pineapple. And by the way, the thermate's nothing. You know, it's the RDX cord and the micronukes that were removed, and the debris in the building they tested with 3 different radiation detectors was positive for radioisotopes. So any moron who wants to think there's this theory when it's concrete-based facts, it's not. It just is. It's one of those is things that's not open for somebody's opinion anymore. It's an is thing, which is why we had 9/11, because it didn't face the facts about Oklahoma City. And when I came on and told my story on Alex Jones' show back in December of 2004, I got a call to come on and do the show with Butch Pa. And after I did the Butch Pa program, Ted Anderson, who knew I did radio experience because I worked and had a show just for teaching called Laughter's the Best Medicine with Mark Allen Curry on Clear Channel in the mid-'90s out of the Denver Clear Channel studios. I do a 2-hour show just to teach people about health, and we crack jokes because he's an Emmy Award-winning comedian. There's nothing funny about this. When I went through this experience and got death threats and fired at Oklahoma City, this isn't open to your damned opinion. I am sick and tired of people thinking that they have a right to an opinion over something I went through personally. People say, well, how come you're not dead, Diggle? It's because if they killed me, you might. You gutless people out there, you might believe. Okay? So I'm sick and tired of anybody thinking they have a right to an opinion on this. They don't. And because we aren't facing the facts about 9/11, we're going to have a much bigger terror activity, probably under this idiot, the abominator in the White House, that'll probably be, quote, Al-Qaeda or Al-Nursa, Al-Qaeda and their various weapons like these man-pads they got, or it'll be a radiological or biological bomb in the U.S. city, and then they'll really clamp down on us. That's why they're having these war game simulations, because they want to bring out martial law, but they want a really good excuse, a biological terrorism, a radiological bomb, or, and again, I remember I worked with Special Forces. I was one of their doctors. I remember spending an entire week in St. Louis. We had an environmental conference. I spent an entire week talking to my Special Forces guys, and they had been doing, by that time in the mid-90s, 30 years of simulations with radiological bombs and nukes going off in U.S. cities. 30 years. This is long before Obama was out of high school. You need to understand, this is not one administration here. This is a long power play by global maniacs. Long power play. So, Terry Nichols insists the FBI was involved in the plot, but thankfully a judge has saved us from the trouble of listening to him by preventing lawyers from deposing him. Interesting. There was a bomb squad truck parked across the street 2 hours from the blast, but that just shows the authorities were prepared for anything. Oh, really? And someone called the executive secretary's office at the Justice Department in Washington and said the Murrah building had been bombed, but this was 24 minutes before the blast. So 24 minutes before the blast, this is like when Tower Number 7 fell on the news for BBC News. They were reporting the falling of Tower Number 7 before the bombs in the building that caused the dissolution of the steel girders and caused the building to collapse vertically occurred before it happened on camera. Okay, do you get this? They don't even show the proper respect to lie to us and make it look plausible. Also, the governor of Oklahoma City's brother wrote a book before the attack in which Tom McVeigh plots to blow up a federal building, and that's probably just a coincidence. Remember, I've had the brother of Timothy McVeigh on my program years ago. I'm going to bring him back on. Probably try to get him on next week. He's an attorney, by the way, and he explained in exquisite detail what happened there and how he had to look at his brother's body, who, by the way, was showing that he had been abused after they... his so-called brother, this is the brother of the Tom McVeigh, plots to blow up the federal building, and that's probably just a coincidence. Hey, really? The attack was written by Tom McVeigh. This is interesting, hey? So the governor of Oklahoma's brother wrote a book. McVeigh wrote a letter to his sister where he admitted to being a secret Special Forces operative, and he complained to his friends of the pain in his ass from the Army implanted microchip. And by the way, I took care of Special Forces. They had microchip in their right shoulder blade and in their left buttock, so they could tell which position they were in if they were in a battle, whether they were not moving on the ground, because they could actually see from their military-grade GPS coordinates down to a tolerance of 1.5 centimeters. If they stopped moving or if they're laying on the ground, probably dead. That was around when I was taking care of employees back in the mid-90s for almost 20 years. They're using military-grade GPS and these implanted microchips to know the GPS coordinates of their Special Forces operatives. And that was, by the way, didn't exist at all. He said it didn't exist. And he left the Army in 1991, right? This man never existed, and you say otherwise, you'd be crazy, government-hating nutjob who deserves to be locked up in a cage for the rest of your life. Likewise, him, her, them, her, and him, and him. McVeigh was not executed on May 16, 2001 as scheduled because the FBI withheld 1,000 of documents from McVeigh's lawyers. But that doesn't matter because the execution went on ahead anyway on June 11th. In a highly unusual and secret agreement, no autopsy was performed. Witness said he was still breathing, and the prison officials admitted his hearse was a decoy. The case was officially closed. Wow. If you think you have an opinion on this, and you want to have some questions in on any topic this hour, we're going to do nutritional things here in a minute, is 800-259-5791. And if you think, well, if you haven't heard the program before, you say, my gosh, that Dr. Bill, he has a bad attitude. Yeah, I do, actually. My attitude is against lies, deception, and gutlessness. I have a very bad attitude. I'm not afraid to die. I am afraid to not tell the truth. I am a servant and a son of the Most High God, like you out there. If you're a real Christian, is God not only your Savior, but is He your Lord? Are you willing to tell the truth even if you're going to lose your job? Your relatives will spit on you and treat you like garbage at a barbecue or at the weddings or whatever because you tell the truth or raise questions about things like Oklahoma City. Are you a prepper? Are you prepared spiritually and physically for what's coming? Are you taking control of your own health? Are you listening to your magnificent deity, your so-called doctor who tries to lord over you that he's got an MD, or your nurse practitioner, or your chiropractor, or any other health professional who thinks that you're not worthy of explaining to them the very operator's manual of what your body is, a miraculous miracle made by the Most High God that needs proper nutrition, nutraceutical support, and proper health? No. What you need to realize is they've turned the healthcare system, which in the ancient state of Israel was a proper model. The high priests, which had to be servants of the Most High God first, because if they drew the straw to be in Yom Kippur inside the Holy of Holies, they had a rope tied to their right leg, and if they were ungodly when they poured the blood over the horns of the altar, they were killed on the spot by the Most High God, and their dead body, when they stopped the a cappella prayers, would be hauled under the curtains of the sea cows making the tent of meeting. You need to understand this. God takes it seriously. We don't have a godly system where they're completely, our health professionals, given over to serve the Most High God, which is why they have eugenics, abortion. This should never be even discussed. It should never come up. And it shouldn't be whether or not they're female or have a birth defect. If the child's going to live, they will survive. And if they're not, with all the interventions present at the time, they're not. And this idea that human beings, somehow it's open to discussion, it's not. It's simply murder. The same thing as eugenics. We have under Obamacare now, if your doctor provides certain kinds of care to certain patients, without going through, quote, the ethics committee if you're a certain age. They tried in Ontario, Canada with the same kind of idea with the socialist government in Ontario, that if you're a smoker, you wouldn't qualify for a cardiac bypass surgery. So if you had a smoking addiction problem and you ended up with blocked arteries, you weren't going to get a bypass operation. So I think that's disgusting. And we need to, as Christians, stop being the if you want to call it the doormat for non-Christians, secular agnostics. We need to take control of this world. We need to stop and support politicians like Rand Paul, who's the only godly candidate right now that's on the thing that actually has the authority and the intellect and the proper background like Ron Paul to create a true republic again in America. We do not have a republic. We have basically a communist control freak state by a bunch of agnostic communist Satanists like Obama, and many even in the Republican Party that put distractions like Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, who don't even qualify because they're not born in America. And that needs to happen. So when we talk about health care, please do not think that you're going to get any health care by buying any other nutraceuticals from elsewhere, getting the wrong advice, or thinking it's a good idea to get paint-by-numbers chemotherapy or proton or radiation therapy for your cancer. And why wait until you end up needing a bypass operation as a rescue because you're going to die? Why let your blood pressure get into orbit? Take nutraceuticals. And if you do need to take drugs, I'll tell you what ones are safe. For blood pressure, the only ones that are safe are ACE receptor blockers, mild diuretics. Don't ever take calcium channel blockers. If you have to take a beta blocker for serious cardiac problems, it has to be cardioselective, like Corig. Do not take we call rhythmogenic drugs. Those are very dangerous. There's another new one that just got approved. Never take HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors for any type of high cholesterol, ever, because it shrinks your brain. Don't take calcium channel blockers to lower your IQ and shrink your brain inside your skull. It lowers your IQ in 5 years 30 to 50 points and will cause an anatomical shrinkage. If you take high-dose non-selective beta blockers for males, it'll make you fat, bald, stupid, and impotent. And for females, it'll cause further damage, not only there, but your mitochondria, because it interferes with CoQ10 metabolism. And don't think, well, I'm just going to take CoQ10. All the other forms of CoQ10, other than ours here at Nutrimedical, crystallize or polymerize and become completely inactive within 30 days. So you're wasting your time. And if you don't take a special form of carnitine, and we have a plethora of specialized forms, IBS care for your bowel, mitocarnitine, which is a general form, which is the glycine propionyl L-carnitine, that's good for all conditions, and then the specialized vascular form called VascuCare. And I recommend if you have a serious vascular problem like hypertension, cardiac failure, or circulatory problems, your secondary vascular peristaltic activity of your smooth muscles in your arterioles and arteries and venules and veins has to be restored to normal to restore perfusion. The reason why your heart's raising blood pressure, it perceives your perfusion is low, so it drives at the driving pressure, which can eventually damage the blood vessels and form unstable plaque. Don't think that cholesterol causes heart disease. That is total hogwash, which has been disproven over 20 years ago now, research in the mid-90s. So if your doctor thinks otherwise, have them call me, and I will set them straight with the actual published literature to prove it. I'll give them the specific tests and markers, like blood electrophoresis, of the electrolytes, not NMR spectroscopy, which is done by most labs. I'll tell them what tests to do to measure calcium score, like high-speed CT scan, 8-second test to tell you where the calcium score is. I will tell you which nutraceuticals, like full vitamin K2, menaquinone 7, that'll reverse calcification. We can stop intimal damage with ellagic acid, malignoblock, and menaquinone 7, which is the vitamin K2, to reverse the intimal damage to your artery walls. We can restore oxidative stress with cell detox, glutathione, cardivite, Nutritrol, and Regenerex. We can heal the inside wall with Neurogen, which is docosahexaenoic acid, Omega Supreme Krill, and Omega Cod Liver Liquid. There's no excuse at all for developing plaque. There's no excuse for developing a hyperviscous blood disorder. We have nattokinase and lumbrokinase, and if you don't think thick blood will kill you, your doctor's never tested your rheologic, non-Newtonian fluid dynamic blood viscosity. I had a machine in my office in Denver. I tested for years with a top cardiologist doing research in this area. You can test and send your blood off to Rheologics to actually measure blood viscosity. So in any area in medicine or in any area in any topic in science, ask me a question. If I don't have the answer, I'll research it and find you an answer immediately. Now, that may seem like a big challenge, but I am a servant of the Most High God, and I've been asking questions and getting answers for decades because I'm willing to look there, including being embarrassed that I don't know. There's lots of stuff I don't know. But you need to understand this. If you're taking supplements elsewhere and they're not customized to your specific health needs and they're going to change in 3 or 6 months, you're harming yourself. If you're taking medical drugs and you don't realize that only a small percentage are even safe to take in your health condition, you're going to create new health conditions. If you're taking massive amounts of diuretics and you're not replacing your minerals, you're going to get osteopenia, osteoporosis, fractured teeth as your enamel thins, and your bones are going to break. If you think that you're not doing harm by taking the wrong calcium supplements instead of bone generator, and you're now getting metastatic calcification in your artery walls and your brain and solid organs like your brown fat and around your internal organs, it's because you didn't listen. You need to know that the only minerals you can take for your bones is bone generator, bone crystals. And if you don't take things like rebar to make the collagen, like Collagen Max, Mountain Red Velvet, joint performance and tendon bender to build your connective tissues and joints, you cannot rebuild your body. You can't. Any other alternative is a lie. Back in a minute with your questions coming up. We'll have Ryan. And we're back, and we have breaking news with Tim Alexander. Tim, you should probably call in the third hour, too, because we're going to have open lines for the whole hour. It's going to be, I'm in rare form today. My nutraceuticals and energizing things that I'm doing are really starting to peak Dr. Deagle out. I'm starting to reach my prime right now. And I got, my attitude is getting worse by the day, by the way.
Well, this will definitely help your attitude get worse.
Well, this is going to this is probably going to tick me off even more. And we're going to have Ryan here in a minute. But tell us what the story is today. Whenever you call in, by the way, Tim.
It was just posted within probably the last hour by Veterans Today. And I think their analysis is right on. It says, was a nuke from the German-Israeli-Saudi stockpile used in Yemen? Did the Royal Saudi Air Force basically use a small tactical nuke in Yemen? There was this story that earlier today and maybe late yesterday that the Saudi Air Force hit a ammo dump containing Scud missiles, and it made one hell of an explosion. Well, as Veterans Today says, the compound used in the Scud missiles, when it burns yellow and brown. Okay? Yeah. The explosion that supposedly was a bunch of Scud missiles going off after being hit by a bomb is white.
Yeah.
and it has it's a mushroom cloud, by the way.
Right.
There have been about 50. The International Atomic Energy Agency has documented almost 50 clandestine nuclear explosions since 45.
Right, including off in Indonesia. Remember that bar in Indonesia that was done about a dozen years ago?
Yeah. And
by the way, it's all Israeli. Israeli is a trigger finger. The micro-nuke trigger finger for the Mossad is just a trigger finger for the CIA. Period.
They got them. They got to play with them. It's a toy. It kills.
Well, if you don't keep up your skill set and kill a bunch of people, you can't either, number one, serve Satan, number two, can't keep your skill set. So if you really got to do some bad stuff, like in Yemen with the Houthi tribesmen, and people think, oh, this is a joke. This is not. Listen up, people. You might think it's way over there, and that's bad news, and it makes your stomach turn, but you can still order pizza, deep dish pizza, and still have a beer. Guess what? When the Obama, who's brought in 100,000 new Muslims every year to America, many of them, by the way, as soon as they get their stomach full, they're getting on a flight to go back and fight with ISIS and ISIL. They're not even putting them in prison when they come back here. They should not only be seized, but they should be put in a prison where they throw the key away. They should have their citizenship revoked. But instead, the abomination government is bringing them in at the rate of 100 to 200,000 Muslims per year and salting them all over the country at our expense. That's how sickening this is.
Well, plus a few million Mexicans a year too, but that's
and by the way, they have a camp right across the border from Texas, 8 miles from Texas. That actually is.
No, the latest story is that's been proved false. That ISIS camp.
No, it's not false. Let me explain. I got other sources. Okay, there's not one camp. There's dozens of them inside the United States, the continental U.S. There are 37 military-grade weapons training camps, and these were exceeded long before, by the way, George Bush got in power. They were there at the time of Bill Clinton. Muslim extremist training camps inside the continental U.S. I talked to Special Forces in '97 in St. Louis specifically about this, and that is 18 years ago. So when people say they want to argue with me, they're going to lose the argument. Okay? It's over. They may have said, oh, well, no, that wasn't true. You know why they do this? They put it out in the news, and they say, oh, well, that was a lie. So then whenever it comes out again, you say, well, it's always just a lie. Your brain has this little stamp on it and says, oh, well, there's no such thing as guys that look like, a Mexican, but they're actually from the Middle East, and they're part of ISIL, and they're actually, wind-up toys for Mossad. This is really serious stuff, and people don't understand. When they blow up a radiological bomb in Chicago or Atlanta or L.A., when they have a biological weapon release, when they declare martial law, which they're doing with this Jade Helm game that they're playing, don't be surprised when Deagle says, oh, Dr. Deagle, you're right. You know what? I prayed last week, and I said, God, someday I'd like to have respect of my own family, by the way, because I don't. My colleagues, I don't. And many of the listeners who think I'm just nuts. And you know what God said to me? You don't want that, Bill. And I said, why, God? Because I have a conversation. He talks back to me. He says, because the day that they respect you is a day of gnashing and grinding of teeth and death and destruction and blood. The day that they show respect for you and believe that what you told them prophetically and technically and scientifically was true, whether it's Fukushima or Oklahoma City or the coming disaster long after 9/11 that's even worse, is a day of gnashing of teeth and grinding and crying out and blood-curdling, suicidal screams as people slit their own throats rather than face the future. That's the day I don't want to see. I don't want to see a day of respect. I'd rather stay in disrespect and spittle so you out there might actually have chance to repent, turn back our nation, and as they said in 2 Chronicles, repent and I will heal your land. But guess what? I don't see any repentance. The absent without leave church, the satanic government, the both legs of the beast, and the only candidate that I can support, the only one that I can support is Rand Paul, period. Dr. Rand Paul, period. And he's not perfect, but he's pretty damned close.
Well,
he's our last chance.
He's the best of all, but I personally don't support him because he's kissed up to Israel too much.
No, you don't understand, Tim. I'm going to rebuke you live on air here now. You got to realize this. I'm going to rebuke you, and you need to sit down and shut up, okay? Number one, Israel is our ally, whether we like it or not. Number two, God said, I will return the fig tree or the state of Israel in unbelief to the state of Israel. They're a bunch of satanic vipers, the synagogue of Satan running the state of Israel. But What we need to do is we need to have the state of Ephraimerica, which is the, if you want to call the plan of Ephraim and the tribe of Judah, which is Israel, put back together those two houses, and we have to restore the God of Israel over that state, and we have to have Messianic Jews turn to their Messiah, as they said in the Psalm 2, that they shall see the one that they have pierced. So, yeah, he's not kissing them because he's going to be their buddy. Remember, he's a lot more clever. He's a medical doctor, eye surgeon. He's also the son, and you know that Rand Paul is the son of Ron Paul. There's a lot more Ron Paul and Rand Paul than people want to give him credit for. And when people say they don't want to support him because he's... No, be quiet.
Okay.
They're not supporting... You've got to understand this. When people say they don't want to support Rand Paul because he supports the state of Israel, if we didn't have Israel right now, do you think you'd have a drop of oil coming from the Middle East? Do you think we wouldn't have a Muslim caliphate? Do you think we wouldn't have Russian and Chinese running the entire oil industry over there? Really? Do you know what one of my friends, and this was, by the way, the son of the Shah of Iran, told me back in 1972. He was the son of the Shah who told me this personally. Israel is a nuclear gun to our backs to make sure that we continue to supply oil to Britain and the West. If it wasn't for the state of it's a real hell, which is there, which is, God will even use evil, we would not have a drop of oil coming out of the Middle East. You have to understand America exists because we had the petrodollar, which is an arrangement made with the devil, which included Saudi Arabia and the viziers or wizards there. And the states of it's a real hell. But God will redeem them. He says, when he cursed that tree, which is that fig tree, it withered and died within a day. But guess what? God is coming back to restore Israel, and he's coming back to a nation that is an abomination. The state of Israel is an abomination. But guess what? There are even Russian Jews that are Khazarians that are turning to Jesus and becoming Messianic. I know my friends in Dizengoff Circle in Tel Aviv. And I visited there in 1992, 1999, and I can tell you, it brought tears to my eyes to realize there's Jews that are not genetically Hebrews, because I'm a genetic Hebrew, but they're turning to the Most High God because they want to know Messiah. And the moment, even if they're a neurosurgeon, they turn to God, they can't get a job sweeping in front of a cafe, let alone doing neurosurgery. In the satanic nation of it's a real hell, but guess what? They're our ally. So when Rand Paul stands behind them, God help us if Israel goes down. God help us. Okay? So don't ever say that to me again. Don't ever say it to me again. Got it? Don't ever say it.
Your viewers should...
And welcome back. And I don't know if you're in the background there hearing that little dialogue, Ryan, but that's just the facts. Did you hear what I just said?
I did.
People need to understand that. I have a clearer understanding than any other human being in radio or television worldwide talking about the state of it's a real hell and how we have to stand by that state and how we have to stand by the only candidate, the pro-life medical doctor candidate that wants a constitutional republic returned and the return of a normal geopolitical policy of this state of America. He's our last chance. Period. There is no other candidate out there. Not Ted Cruz, not Marco Rubio. And the same way with healthcare. If we don't have a cadre of physicians and health providers and healers and professional trainers that move us toward a true life care system, not a healthcare system which is pre-embalming, we're done. Because when you look at Obamacare, it is so abominable. Even the data recording asking you, by the way, do you have guns at home? Or totally taking over your health care. Have you signed your end-of-life certificates? Have we decided whether we're going to resuscitate you or not? Why is it even in question that whether you're going to resuscitate somebody if they have a heart problem or a cardiac arrest or a stroke or a traumatic accident and they're bleeding out in an auto accident, need a hemopneumothorax evacuated so they don't die of respiratory failure and cardiac arrest? Why? Why are these even brought up in issues? And why do we have a healthcare system where doctors pretend to be all knowledgeable and they don't have the knowledge of a gnat, let they act like a magnificent deity over their poor patients? It's sickening. And I challenge anybody out there, if you think you know better than me about these areas, and you think, I got a really bad attitude today, because I'm sick and tired of people thinking and presuming they know more than me. And it's not because I'm arrogant, it's because I'm sick and tired of seeing victims of a healthcare system or even natural nutraceuticals. People are flogging vitamins, not wellness. You don't sell a vitamin. Dr. Deagle and Nutrimedical is not selling vitamins. We are selling life care. we're trying to sell you to teach you to become your own healthcare provider. That's why I'm writing this book, Dr. You, which is taking a lot of effort with very little time I have to do this. So if I get a little energized and you see me a little energized and angry, let's put it this way. I'm speaking prophetically. Observe, O people of earth and Americans and citizens of earth. Your days are numbered. It's like Mene, Mene, Tekel, Peres, written in ancient Farsi on the walls of the temple in Babylon. Your days have been held, your life has been held in wanting and is found not balancing the scales. And today is the day of your demise. People are dying of Fukushima Daiichi, and they don't even need to know they're bioaccumulating. They're dying of magnesium deficiency, and they don't realize if they took something as simple as magnesium glycinate, they wouldn't need the anti-fibrillatory drugs or the ablation therapy that their crazy cardiac surgeon would do to cut a specific neural pathway in their heart to stop the cardiac arrhythmia. When you hear about these things, Ryan, don't you cringe and you hear doctors are doing that? And they can't even certify it through the FDA. The FDA won't even certify that these doctors are doing the valid and right thing by doing cardiac ablation surgery, putting a catheter up and zapping and burning out different pathways in the heart. All they needed was magnesium glycinate malate. They needed gamma E+. They needed to take our nutraceuticals like Supernox and restore and stop the oxidative stress in our artery walls. But yet, their knucklehead doctors are killing them.
Well, not dealing with nutrient deficiencies or looking at that as something that's, sort of non-relevant, is a sad thing. And I think that just pointing back to everybody.
It doesn't make me sad. It doesn't make me sad. You see, sadness is a thing where you feel powerless and you can't do anything. I feel powerful because I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of being disabused by my relatives, friends, neighbors. All think. In fact, I had a comment made by somebody recently. Somebody said, and then this is, you got to take this in context. You understand? I had a recent visitor, and they said, "Do you know what somebody said?" They said that you're a super genius. I said, well, maybe they came to that opinion. If I'm gifted, it's not for my sake because it gets a lot of persecution, it gets me a lot of trouble. It's because it's for your sake out there that I'm doing this, because believe me, my long medical career has been one of pain, suffering for discovering and trying to go against the flow. I'm like one of those tuna flying against the current or a salmon going uphill up the stream. It's not funny, because every single thing I've discovered I've been persecuted for. Everything I've done, even doing medical legal work in the state of Colorado and around the country, every place I've been, I have been persecuted for just standing up for the right thing as a Christian and doing the ethical thing and asking tough questions about the fact that we doctors are ignorant, dangerous, and stupid. Period. And when you face that ugly truth, you start to realize, hey, let's become wiser. Let's give our patients things to stop oxidative stress, like give them Omega Supreme. Did you know, Ryan, that at the dosage of 2 Omega Supreme twice a day, that one thing can cut out heart disease, stroke, deep vein thrombosis, and vascular disease by 50%. That's not even adding Supernox and Cardivite and Gamma E+, and all the other things like VascuCare and CoQ10. Just that one thing. But are the doctors doing that? Of course not. Do they know that the head-to-head studies show omega cod liver liquid will lower cholesterol to its normal range, because it has to be in your range, not where the doctors want a number? Because cholesterol does not cause heart disease, contrary to the knucklehead stupid doctors. And I did the regional research with Dr. Moskovitz at the University of British Columbia in 1977, and I personally drew the bloods on hundreds of patients that were coming down. We brought Eskimos from the Northwest Territories in Alaska, and you could see they had cholesterols of 2,800 to 3,600, and not a one of them had vascular disease, because they had a little pouch in their belt that had seal flipper. They never had peas, beer, white man's bread, or any other sugar. They never had oxidized fatty acids, and they had continuous amounts of lipids in their blood, so you'd separate their blood and you'd see the buffy coat on the top. Do doctors want to argue with that? I doubt it, because if they call into this program, I will rip them a new body hole. Let's put it that way. I am so sick and tired of people that pretend to know more than I do about these issues. And now, after I've been in practice and out in practice and gone through years and years of persecution, I am no longer going to take it anymore. I'm like that movie Network. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. My head's out the window, the TV set's gone out the window too, and it's on its way to the ground, and I am sick and tired of it. People need to understand that. And that's when I give them nutraceuticals and I hear them going off and getting them from elsewhere and getting stupid advice from their naturopath or their chiropractor or their MD that doesn't even know how to do proper testing. It drives me nuts. It's like, are you crazy? Just listen to the program. Just go to the wellness conditions. Just email me and I'll give you free advice. Why would they do that, Ryan? I'm beside myself. How about you? What do you think? You're speechless, right? Well, you know, it is very, very irritating. And I tell people, I said, please don't do that. Don't take an HMG red reductase inhibitor. Start taking omega cod liver liquid. Start taking Carnivite. Get rid of the free iron, which is the iron time bomb oxidizing cholesterol to form 9-normal hydroxycholesterol. Don't wait till your last few clues are gone. You can't find the keys or know what your recipe cards are. Take Cognition Plus and Brain Power. Take things like Neurogen to remyelinate your brain. If you think, well, I'm not getting dysmyelination, I'm pretty smart, I can do this and this. Really? But you're having periodic spells where you don't remember this or that actor's name or a musical theme or whatever. That's the warning signs to tell you, you haven't got down to your last few good neurons, but you're getting close. Okay? I call them senior moments. Okay? So, if you think you know better than me on this, you're fooling yourself. And I'm in the process of learning, and I interact with the top doctors in the world. I blog now for the Academy of Environmental Medicine. I teach in the Academy of Environmental Medicine, of Anti-Aging Medicine, and blog there. And I'm preparing papers this year. And this book, Dr. You, if you think you know better than me, doctor, patient, whatever, for God's sake, contact me and I'll help and teach you otherwise. Please let me help you. Please, health professionals, become life care providers, not pre-embalming disease care managers. It's just really mind-boggling to think that people know better. And if people think that's arrogant, it's not. I care about people, but I do not carry rats behind. If you think you know more, prove it. And hour 3 is coming up. 800-259-5791. If you think you know better on any topic, or if you got an issue, you can teach me. But you better have your smarts about you, because it'll be ugly if you say something stupid or harmful to my audience. 800-259-5791. We're back in a minute. Hour 3 is open. It's going to be a cage match, and we lock the cage. 800-259-5791. Again, the 20th anniversary of Oklahoma City, when my first real serious conspiracy theory, first-hand death threats fired out the door. Let me tell you, I remember it. That's what makes me so mad today. Oklahoma City.